number of submarines sitting in a cavern-looking area. They looked like regular submarines to me of the era. This would have been probably between 81 and 83. I was 11 to 13 years old. So they loaded us all in these different subs and took us down. And where we ended up at the time was miraculous. Since then, they've discovered similar looking caves. This one in Mexico, where these are huge crystals that have formed over millions of years. That it was about 140 degrees where we went, and they had us hooked up to instruments that monitored our health for several different reasons, as well as they had cameras. They had all types of different equipment in the room that were doing some sort of, they were measuring, trying to measure something, like electrically. And I told the story in the Cosmic Disclosure about how they wanted us to try to interface or psychically connect with the crystals, that they warned us not to physically touch the crystals because the crystals could harm us or we could harm the crystals, that we were just to reach out to them. And when I did so, I started to see this pink kind of aura around the crystal, and I got a download. I really couldn't, it was just too much information for me to try to do a little stop in time to look at the picture. But when we were recently going over this information for the graphic novel, I remembered not really in the middle of all of this, but kind of back, was a very tall being in a similar suit we were in. And I could just see this part of their eyes, but between the top of their lip and their forehead. And they had very large, pale blue eyes, and their skin was alabaster white. Interesting. I think some of the work that I'm doing with Gonzalez with my memory and trying to fix some of the neurological issues, I'm starting to trigger information that for some reason they didn't want me to have. It was beautiful. They were beautiful. And we were told that these crystals they had a life force to them. And basically when we interfaced with them, we connected with them and were downloading information like a USB drive, and later the information was, yes, downloaded out of us. Of course, as protocol, at the end, we were all debriefed as a part of them also removing the data from us, and then we were blank slated and sent back up to the surface, where we soon got into a white van, were driven to school, and then our parents picked us up. And we were usually given a memory of going on a field trip to a museum or to see a show or something like that. The screen memories seem to fade away very quickly for me, and about 3 to 5% of the people. For some reason, about 3 to 5% of the people they use these technologies on, they're just unsuccessful, at least for very long. The way I've explained it is that, how do we have memories from past lives? Our physical brains were not there to record the information. Well, obviously, we have since I was in the IT field, we have a physical hard drive, and we have a virtual hard drive. And everything we experience now and in other lives are backed up to that virtual hard drive. This physical hard drive can be messed with. It can be reformatted, it can be reprogrammed, but the information that is up in the cloud, I guess you would say, can't be. And if they remove information from your physical hard drive, there seems 3 to 5% of the intuitive empaths, there seems to be a automatic download or type of thing that occurs where the information starts coming back, and they're unable to erase the information permanently. This is the first time I went down to the Anshar area down in the inner earth. I was brought down. There was a bright flash. I wasn't expecting it. I was laying down, and all of a sudden I find myself, I'm laying down on a floor in a completely different environment. All of a sudden it's cooler. I can smell and kind of taste minerals. I hear kind of echoey type of sounds. I was not where I was when I went to sleep. And I was in the middle of this room, and I saw people guarding doorways kind of off in the distance. And at that point, Ari and Gonzalez and a small delegation approached me. And I was still pretty nervous. They then brought me to this cleansing room, which was close by. And it was, because we were on holy ground, I guess you would say, we had to remove the clothing we were wearing and cleanse ourselves in this pool. And, for them, it was not that big of a deal. But I was probably about 60 pounds heavier, and all these people looked like vegans. So first off, I wasn't real excited about taking my clothes off. And Gonzalez wasn't making it any easier. I was kind of trying to hide the best I could, and Hari comes walking up with towels and the tunic thing that I was supposed to wear, the robe. And as she was walking up, I was kind of using him in between us to block. And he saw what I was doing, and he got a real devious smile on his face, and he took one giant step back. So she gave me the robe and the little towels and left, or stepped back away, and then I was guided through doing the embarrassing cleansing ceremony. Once I had the robe on and I kind of shrugged off that experience, we headed towards the actual meeting. And I didn't even know that it was really going to be this big of a meeting, but this unprecedented meeting between the 7 different groups. And above the doorway in the main room, they had Vesica Pisces symbols above each doorway. And the little hole in the middle, it looked like you could stick a dowel piece of wood in there. It looked like it held something. One of the symbols I saw a few times was there was a large gold star, and next to it a smaller red star, both of them with 8 points. And it ended up being on the main table when I walked in for this meeting. And they had this is very accurate, by the way, the placement of it all. And this is when they started really speaking this pre-Akkadian language. And that's when they started also discussing what a threat our scalar weaponry had become to them, and how we were basically seeing all these underground bases weren't doing the intelligence to find out whose they were, and when we were attacking them, we weren't distinguishing between them. We were just, oh, there's one, hit it. And it was causing them a lot of problems. When I was taking to see the city, that's when I was blown away. I walk out of this area, and it's like when you walk up to a building for the first time and you find yourself looking straight up. It's the perspective is so quickly changed on you. It was like being on a different planet. There were some of these natural pillars that were in between the ceiling and the floor. And remember how big these pillars would have to be. You could fit Texas inside of this cavern. And there were lights, windows and lights, and looked like balconies all up and down this giant pillar. There were all of these craft that were flying around overhead as well, and they were just disappearing into the side of a wall as if they were just dematerializing and passing straight through. They had egg-shaped craft, cigar-shaped craft, and irregular flying saucer type craft that were flying, and it looked like kind of like a highway. What was interesting were the giant buildings that just like domes of light. I didn't get close enough to see what they were, but they were very large, about the size of like a football stadium. They were very large. Later, I got to see this very similar type of scene. I was flown in one of the egg-shaped craft over the city and through the wall on a recent expedition. Well, you know, what do the Anshar eat? They're definitely not carnivores. They very much into eating vegetables and fruit that are grown in a certain way, a very high vibratory way. It's interesting how important that is to them, having high vibratory food. When Thierry told me that that was a very important part of this journey that most of us leave off. We'll work on the, you know, somewhat on the physical part, but we'll work on the spiritual part. We don't realize that we hit a glass ceiling until we can get our physical bodies on the right vibration for what we're putting in it. This was a huge area. I mean, these crops were enough. I mean, they could feed millions of people. We were taken again to this other area that was kind of a park, and it had all sorts of animals in there from a prehistoric era, an area that I believe it was before the last cataclysm or the last ice age. You could hear the animals in the background. At one point, when we were close to being done, some sort of a loud cat or lion type creature roared. I could feel it in my chest. It startled me at least. And in the middle of that room was a giant obelisk that was very weathered. It looked very ancient. And directly above it, towards the top of the cavern, was this giant plasma ball that was putting off the full spectrum of light that our sun does. And during this time when I had just delivered this information, and David Wilcock got that real shocked look on his face I've seen a million times now, and dug around and pulled out a file and then displayed it to all of us at Cosmic Disclosure. And it was his current book cover, the Saturn in the background, a giant glass obelisk with the sun above it, a plasma ball above it. It was a really weird correlation. My trip there ended with me being brought to the libraries. When I arrived there, completely different look. Everything, all the stone was white and polished marble. And when I first arrived, there was a large, skinny gold arm sticking out of the ceiling holding a crystal ball. And when I told David this, he remembered a story about a pyramid that was found in Bimini underwater, and there was a hand holding a crystal, and the guy pried it out. I guess that reminded him of that story. Now, when we walked through the library, we would see these very old rolled up scrolls. We were seeing tablets and different weird looking books that were bound by like plant material and leather, all the way up to the end where I was seeing books that you could have ordered off of Amazon.com a week before. They had the ISBN numbers on them. It was amazing. So they keep abreast of all of everything. They have full access to the internet. It was down there that Ari was telling me that there's a lot of information that has been out there, and a lot of it about the Anunnaki and all of that is fairly accurate, but that the information very early on had been co-opted by this, I guess, Illuminati type faction that wanted to make their religion our religion, so they tried to skew some of the information. Apparently, to these raptor type beings, they had lost access to one of their crystal caverns that had a lot of information that was very important to them, and they wanted access to that information. And Kyrie had heard that as a adolescent, I had been brought down there to interface with the crystals. That was one of the big reasons they wanted to interface with me, is to try to see what kind of information they were able to glean. They had one of these old crystals, and they had it in this chamber that they were trying to regrow it somehow. Kari she had told me that she wanted to experience the memory I had of connecting with the crystals. I was kind of leery about it. I didn't know who she was. She was wanting to do something that is very personal. And she could tell I had trepidation, and she walked over to a wall, turned around, and then she had this drink that she called the elixir of Isis that would calm me down and put me in a state to where I could communicate with her better, and I turned it down. At that point, we sat down and leaned across each other and had our elbows on our knees and held hands. And at that moment, I felt as though I was pulled outside of my body towards the middle of where we were, and there was some sort of, I don't know, it's like a whirlwind going on, and I started seeing all these flashes of her life. And as she was going through my life, trying to get to the point to where she could experience that experience, I was seeing those time periods in her life too. But a lot of what I was seeing, I wasn't able to interpret because I have such a different experience than she does. But there was an experience to where she was upset extremely that one of her childhood friends had been killed in an incursion with these raptor type beings. There were a few things like that, and that's when I was able to glean from her that she is a priestess set aside to be holy, that she has never engaged in sex or any of that. She was totally put aside just for what she was doing. And after I had that experience with her, my wife would walk in for months, and I would just be sitting there staring at the wall, thinking about all of the conversations we've had. And very little of the conversation that we had in the library and the information we exchanged in this mind meld have I really recorded. I'm still processing a lot of it, and I hope to get it out at some point. But it affected me profoundly. After that, it was very soon after that, I found myself having to get on the high vibratory diet. I was eating corn dogs. I was 268 pounds. And I guess people that saw the show, you saw how quickly this transformation happened. It was almost bizarre. People at Gaia, when I would show up each time, I was so much different. They had problems processing it. A lot of people out in the community are convinced that I've been replaced by a clone. A skinnier clone, yeah. Now the Anshar, they let me know that for millennia, they have been reaching out and interfacing with human beings and helping them channel information that is spiritually enlightening and also information that is scientific that will help us through certain periods. When I walked through this library area where all these people were kicked back in these egg-shaped chairs, it was, I don't know, it's surreal. You're walking and you see all these people kicked back, kind of like in meditation mode. A lot of people would love to see that here. But that's when it was explained to me that they reach out, they'll reach out, and a person usually will tell them who they're going to be in the session. Like a person will be there, and they'll come to them, and they'll be like, oh, are you blah, 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 from their belief system? And usually they'll be like, okay, it's a positive figure. Sure, we'll roll with it. And then they start giving this positive spiritual information or technical information. And not just this group are reaching out. We're in telepathic communication with a lot of different beings, and a lot of them are these like archangel with us. The insurer brought me on 2 different occasions down to Antarctica. The first time was just for what they called a reconnaissance flight. They wanted to get this information to the SSP Alliance and a few other people, and so they pretty much just brought me along for the ride. This is the vessel we were on. Gonzalez called it a bus because I guess when you walk in, it's seated very similar to a bus, and it looks kind of like a bus. So he was calling it the Inshark bus. Now, one of the interesting things I was shown is that directly below Antarctica, there is a huge kind of a cavern system that goes in under the water, and then it runs into the rift system that runs under the Ross ice shelf, and runs up through under the ocean in a rift system that runs all the way up to North America. The military-industrial complex have been exploiting those areas for many, many years. We've developed these giant black submarines that are electromagnetically propulsed, but they're the size of container ships. They're huge. They actually load with, I saw them unloading, but they will load with cranes, giant container ships, just like you will see in any harbor around here. And then they take them under the ground in the water down to various places in South America and ultimately Antarctica. And a lot of the area they travel through are areas that were, I guess, created between rift systems by the ancient Goode race. They're very ancient underwater tunnel systems. As we were flown in, once I really realized that there was an industrial area under the ice, I learned that they told me not to get lost in the telemetry or the information because the craft we were on was very intuitive. If I would wonder about something, all of a sudden all this data would come up about it. And the experience was happening so quickly, if I would look at the data, I would miss a whole lot of other. So she was telling me the data is being captured, it will be sent to the proper people. Just focus on looking out the window, basically. It wasn't a window, but. And one of the things we saw was a giant in the middle of this sprawling industrial area, obviously built by humans. They had a huge power plant that was, it created power from geothermal. It went into the ground, and the geothermal heat allowed them to create steam, which works a lot like like nuclear power here that we use. There were large buildings and structures. Like I said, mostly what was above ground there looked like a military type base and industrial, like they were building something and excavating something. I wasn't quite sure. A lot of the steam plumes were coming up from pools of water. The water was so hot that it was steaming that was coming out. And come to find out, that's what's creating a lot of these ice caverns, is the geothermal heat coming up. And it's increasing. The geothermal heat is getting more and more active down there. It's raising the entire temperature of the ice shelf by like 1 degree every couple years, which is enough to cause a massive melt at some time in the future if it keeps occurring at that rate. The excavation that we're doing underneath the ice is further destabilizing the ice. And it's a problem right now. It could cause some serious issues if a giant shelf broke off and fell in the water. It could cause tsunamis. And they're doing most of their excavating with steam, pressurized steam, to clear out areas where they are finding ancient palm trees, ancient structures, mastodons, woolly mammoth type creatures. They're finding them everywhere. They were flash frozen. After that trip, I returned back to the inner earth hangar area through this blue swirling vortex that was just above the water. That's where I've gone in and out of it several times now. One of the groups that I didn't know about until Ari told me about them was a group called the Banished. This is a group that is made up of people that have been kicked out of inner earth societies over millennia because they didn't want to live by the rules. A lot of them, it turns out, just fell in love with surface humanity. Even though we're going through these wild, crazy times and we're mostly misbehaving, something about us enamored them. They came out and wanted to live amongst us and help us grow, but at the same time, they have service to self type agendas as well. So they're not seen as positive, more neutral. My first encounter with the Banished, I was actually down at Long Island on our trip last year, family trip. I was laying in the bed, and my son was in the bed next to me, and then there was another queen-size bed in the hotel where my wife and daughter were laying. And I woke up, and I see a woman's head above me, and she's looking this way, and then she looks down and realizes I'm awake, and looks surprised, and then she reaches down and just touches me like that real quick, and then it was over. It was disconcerting to me because my family was in the room. And afterwards, I was having a lot of really weird dreams, thoughts that I don't normally have, very bizarre thoughts and feelings. And as I started to find out more about these people, I started to find out that they tend to seek people in positions of power. They try to intermarry into rich families or powerful families, and that they were having children with these regular human beings. Now, it was probably about 6 weeks. I was having all of these bad dreams, weird thoughts, I just wasn't myself. And I had met with Kari a few times during that time period. Finally, I was pulled down in the middle of the night, white flash teleportation, and she guided me to this room that had a table on it, where she told me that this banished person named Mara had infected me somehow with entity attachments, and that these entity attachments were being used to keep tabs on me and also to get information or intelligence about what was going on with the Anshar. She had me lay down, and she pulls out this real long crystal and starts waving it over me. And it's making noises kind of like how crystal glasses with water in them, you rub your finger around them, they make kind of a singing noise. It was making these different noises, and then all of a sudden I started seeing these shadows darting away. So, they were removed, and I was glad they were removed, but I wasn't very happy that they were there to begin with. I asked her why she hadn't removed them in our prior meetings, or at least told me about them, and she stated that they had to wait till they had tried to attach to my energy vortexes, but just before they completely attached remove them. The most recent trip, I was taken down where Gonzalez was already waiting for me, and we were brought down to this different hangar. And this is the time when we got in one of these egg-shaped craft, and they just started flying us through the walls and over the city. I got to see that scene that you saw flying over the city and before we flew through another wall. We went up through a blue swirl, came out of the ocean basically in a blue swirl, and darted very quickly and got to where we were going in Antarctica. They didn't slow down. They headed straight for a wall, just like they would do in the inner Earth, in the caverns. We went right through the ice. We ended up in a very similar area I'd been to before, a big giant cavern of ice, where about a football field or two away were a bunch of people steaming the ground, digging, and they didn't notice us. I don't know if we were cloaked or not. So Kari was with us, and two of the real tall Asian-looking inner Earth beings with the head of crystals under their head, under their forehead. And then Gonzalez and they had us put on these real fine mesh, almost like chain of mail suits. We would put them on, put the boots on, and they would just come together, just mesh together like one piece. And then they had us put on this thing that you put your head in through the front. And it was kind of like a fencing mask. And it sealed up behind us, and then a screen lit up and you could see everything going on around you. It was really amazing. We could see all these bodies that were lined up pretty close to the snowbank that were of all different types. There were some of these, what I've described as the pre-Adamite types with the large skull, 12 to 14 foot tall. And it looked like the bodies had been through something incredible. Some of their arms were stretched out and wrapped around their torsos. They were pretty beat up. And there were different types of humans that were there too. Gonzalez had with him a special core sample kind of tool that we were using to push into these frozen dead bodies to get genetic samples. He was also taking some sort of images as he was taking the sample. One of the ones that I did a sample from was, there was a probably a little bit shorter than 5 foot tall being that was curled up, much like this. And they had a tail that was sticking out, kind of out and frozen. I could see the folds where the tail connects to the back. There were these weird, like, kind of folds of skin. And I had to stick the probe in there and get a genetic sample out for them. But was one of the interesting things is that people in those programs, they were calling this a Pompeii on ice because of the way these bodies were discovered. They were discovered in a very eerie, similar way to Pompeii. These were, the one on the right is one of these original pre-Adamite type beings. And they had the long, elongated skulls, kind of the fatty pockets on their chests, kind of a pot belly as well, and very wide hips, very interesting wide hips. And of course, many of y'all have seen that with the ancient Egyptian depictions of some of the pharaohs. Akhenaten and some of them that were depicted with strange physiology. And some of these elongated skull beings that ended up ruling Egypt and other places were they were survivors or remnants after the last cataclysm that happened. These, I guess, lack of a better word, these Atlanteans were stranded in little enclaves all over the planet. They no longer had access to their technologies, or most of their technologies, or each other. They were separated and really didn't begin to talk with each other again. The group, there was two different groups. One group was Europe, Africa area, and another group was here in the Americas. And until after the time of Columbus, they were not able to really interact with each other. And there seems that there is a long-standing competition or feud between the two groups, as it is. These images really show, I guess, the strange bodies that they have, the pockets of fat on the belly, and the real wide hips and narrow waist. It's striking. Back to the original, the bodies we were looking at. We were then shown that there was a little bit of stonework sticking out of the snowbank we were next to. So, without missing a stride, Kari and the two other Inner Earth people just walked through it as if it wasn't there. And Gonzalez looked at me, I looked at him, and we followed them. And when we got inside, the room was lit, and it was a library. There were all different types of scrolls around, very large, looked like someone with large hands, a large being was using it. And on the wall there was a bowl, and there was a little bit different than this image that was depicted. There was 3 rings with a arrow stuck in the middle of it, almost like a target. The 2 Asian-looking Inner Earth people walked directly up to one of these trays and started loading metal scrolls into this collapsible crate that they had with them. And it was crinkling. It sounded a little bit like tin, but I was able to see one of them that had flopped open a little bit, and it looked like laser-etched symbols, all in it, laser-etched symbols. And to this day, I still don't know what type of intel or information it was, but obviously they wanted to remove it before that area was excavated. So, how is all this information really important to us? Our consciousness is expanding at a huge rate right now. Finding out more information about these Inner Earth groups that have been so tied to us in our journey here on planet over millennia will help us understand our history, but also a lot of the information that we're looking at. So much of it has been turned into different belief systems or religions that, people will sit there and regurgitate information in a way that they give other belief systems, crap for. We'll give people crap for being so much of a fundamentalist when we're the same way with our belief systems. What will help is if we start to open our minds a little bit to other information and realize that, if we can look at this information with different eyes, we may get even more useful information out of it. Different perspective at looking at it and looking at ourselves. Of course, I have to talk about the graphic novel. Interestingly enough, when I was conversing with Tier Air, stated that all this is really great work. We're planting information to the seeds of consciousness, but they wanted not only me, but all other light workers out there to find a way to not just be preaching to the choir. The people I'm talking to here, you already have a propensity to believe some of this stuff, or believe a version of it. We need to get this information out through our different talents, different ways of art, music, different types of media. And I don't want people to feel like they have to just spread the blue avian message or this information, but I think everyone right now is being pushed to spread this positive information, loving information in a way that will kick in the 100th monkey effect on a larger scale. More and more people they won't know why, they'll want to be more positive. Basically, I was told to do this and get this information to the gaming people, the sci-fi people, that their consciousness is already primed for a lot of this information, but they see it as entertainment purposes only. But if you can get a message into them, why not? So I think that's what we're going to start seeing. A lot of people that do what we do, people with the arts, music, you're going to find people being compelled to spread this blue avian type message of being more loving, forgiving yourself, being service to others, and trying to change the world one person at a time.
What is their message?
Their message for humanity is that we need to become more loving, we need to become forgiving of ourselves and forgiving of others. We need to focus on becoming more service to others on a daily basis. And we need to focus on raising our vibration and our consciousness.
Ourselves, and that's the only way we're going to save the world. My only desire is to go out in the world and teach people how to tap into their power that they were born with, because you can heal yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. That's one of the things that we've talked about, is you got to change the world one person at a time, that person being yourself, you know? But I think a lot of the light workers, starseeds, whatever you want to call them, that are here, we didn't come here to tell people how to be. We came here to show them, you know? Show them how to live in harmony with the earth. Show them how to go through hell and healing, you know? It's through these examples that we're going to change the world one person at a time. So I completely agree.
I'm an example now.
And that might be your whole mission. You know, it upsets a lot of people when you tell them you chose this mission to come in because all of the abuse and horrible things that happen. They're like, screw you, I didn't choose this. But on some level, you chose to come through this and come through it alive and live through it. And then you're now able to show people, not just tell them. Because anyone, you know, lip service, people are sick of it. You got to show people.
Besides running the Bosnian Pyramid Project, I research pyramids all around the planet. Northern Spain, the town of Palencia, 3 circular pyramids. 1, 2, 3. Their height 74 meters. The Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, Mexico, 74 meters. Those 3 pyramids, they have the same layout like the pyramids in Teotihuacan, Sun, Moon, Quetzalcoatl. The same like the Giza Pyramid, Cheops, Khafre, and Myceren. The same like the pyramids in Italy, Monte Vecchio. Of course, the church placed the statue on the top, and the church is here, so you cannot enter the tunnels. Now, Palencia is a very small town. Today, it's only about 10,000 people. In the 15th century, they built not the church, but cathedral. Even for today's norm, it's a huge cathedral, which should be in Madrid or Barcelona. Now, above the entrance, there is a pyramid ornament. 3 sides, like a triangle. Inside the pyramid are the human faces. The royals, the rulers, military, farmers, kids, mothers. And above the pyramid are those 2 beings, 1 and 2. Now, this was carved in the 15th century. Of course, today, in the last few decades, the Hollywood movies are bringing those predators, aliens. This is from the 15th century. Of course, we do have 2 legs and 2 hands. Now you'll see the head with this long skull. It's not elongated human skull, obviously. This is very, very long skull. Look at the back. Again, we remember all those alien movies with Sigourney Weaver. So, this is really for you, question. Now we try to put the shape, the actual shape now, not shape. Interestingly enough, the cathedral, which is here, is exactly on the north-south line from the pyramid. So the connection is there. The message is there. Who built it? And who is above the humanity?
Hidden in plain sight, that's what I was saying to him. Makes you wonder whoever crafted the Alien versus Predator depiction on movies, if they modeled it after some of these ancient carvings, because it's pretty dead on. Yeah, thank you for that. And interestingly enough, next year we're doing a conference in Valencia, so this information is.
Palencia.
Oh.
Palencia.
Oh, Palencia.
It's north from Valladolid. It's a very small town.
Oh, okay, okay.
Valencia is big.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Hi. I have a question. I don't know if you touched on this yesterday, but it's pretty dear to my heart. As far as us spiritually advancing, I genuinely feel that we will not be able to unless we address the whole satanic pedophilia sacrifice of our children, and whether it be on earth or off earth. And my struggle is every single day with meditation, and I know that we all need to collectively get together and meditate. What I see is trying to visualize the outcome of what, when we spiritually advance and when we move into different realities and move with earth and connect with earth. But what can we do in order to put an end to that? I'd really try to envision the children being free, because, you know, even if right now there's children that are being tortured, and even if they were set free, then what happens to them at this point? So I you know, what do we do? What do we do with this? I have 2 children, and I don't want to live in fear of this, but it's very prevalent, and it's something that no one talks about. It's starting to right now, but I think that that's another one of the full disclosures, that if the human race really found out the depth and the magnitude of what is going on with our children and why these beings need this type of energy and what they do to the children for this energy, I don't know if the human race is going to be able to handle it.
No, they're not. That's why I say, yesterday I asked who all is looking forward to disclosure, and the whole room raised their hand. And I said, be careful what you ask for. It's not going to be a big kumbaya kind of moment. If we get full disclosure, it's going to be the most sickening moment of human history. But it's something, you know, I stated, all evolution occurs through stress. And we're going to need that stressor to be able to evolve past it. You know, and those, if people really don't understand how systemic these satanic pedophiles are. Most of us have that have supported different politicians or whatever, and we fought for them, pumping fists. Well, you know, when we find out that we put all of our energy behind supporting one of these sickos, you know, we're going to feel responsible as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a process that's very, very difficult for us to go through. And at this point, you know, we're kind of waiting for the alliance to expose more and more of it, because everyone is so conditioned right now that, you know, if the news tells us that it's a conspiracy theory, most of the people are going to be, oh, okay, you know, it's a conspiracy theory, you know. We're just at the beginning of exposing all of that, and I've had a very detailed and long briefing, and I have 2 children, that I just wanted to lay in bed, stay in bed afterwards. I mean, I was just sick, and I've heard and seen just about anything you could think of. But people think they know what's going on, and it's horrible, but it's just the very, very tip of the iceberg. Even those of us who know about the pedophilia thing and know the different things that are going on, we're going to be shocked. It is that insidious.
Will it end? Like, will it end?
Well, it'll take a lot of work, because the victims usually perpetrate the crime later on in life because they don't get the right counseling, the right environments. So all of that depends on us, how we handle and how we help the victims. That's where you end the chain, is with the victims. That cycle is ended with the victims. But exposing it and helping the victims heal and develop a modicum of a normal life, that's going to be on us.
I want to add to what Sharon brought up. We cannot, and I believe this with all my heart, we can't develop spiritually until we expose this underbelly of pedophilia. And it was brought to my attention by the extraterrestrials there are ETs that are working with the Alliance, we do have a lot of help. Now, the first episode that I saw on Cosmic Disclosure with you and David Wilcock, my mouth was hanging open. My mouth opened and I was shocked. Okay, that night, the ETs contacted me and they showed me a humanoid reptilian standing next to Adolf Hitler. I have family that was killed by Hitler. And behind that was an ethereal Trump. Now, this was before Trump won the election. And what they disclosed to me at that time was that Trump, whether you like him or not, is going to expose this. He's not part of the cabal. He is going to expose this, and there's going to be trials. There's going to be trials of the people that are running our government that are committing these crimes. You don't get elected unless you agree to commit these crimes. And we need to wake up to this. And I get downloads confirming everything you're saying. And I know about all the infighting with Kerry, whatever, and the people that, you know, Bill, Ryan, and people that were disputing what you were saying. It was told to me that what you were saying is the truth. And a lot of people had a hard time because of the 20-year and back. That whole mind-bending thing with the time is hard even for me to, at this point, to even believe, but I know you're telling the truth. I knew it from the time I listened to you that you were telling the truth. And I get confirmation on what you're saying, and I get confirmation on the pedophilia and on what's going on with the government.
Yes, and I agree totally, of course. But, you know, we're also, no matter how much we think we've grown, we're still responsible in contributing to some of this larger karmic issue. There are, like the United States, we have not dealt with what was done to the Native Americans and the indigenous African people. We have not dealt with it. The people, you know, back during that time that were actually responsible for it, there was no apology or karmic cleansing. They just kicked the can down the road. Well, then their grandkids were like, well, I'm not responsible for that, so they kicked the can down the road. Well, that is a major karmic issue for us collectively in this country, and other countries have it as well. So we have the pedophiles and the Satanists that are controlling and doing all this stuff that you know, we need to expose, but then there's also this, we need to circle around and start to deal with just what I said was just an example. There are many other things. Until we deal with that, we're going to hit a glass ceiling spiritually as well.
I want to thank you for what you said. I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I believe that ties in with what you said about the war behind the scenes. So we have a lot to look forward to. Change the subject just a little bit. I want to make sure that I understood what you said earlier about the secret space program in RA, where they were telling you to avoid RA, the theories, teachings, and how was that communicated to you, or who communicated that to you, and how did you change and discover that that was false?
Well, it was in the programs. The secret space program, it was communicated by superiors, and even the scientists would discuss it sometimes when they would be standing around talking. You know, it would come up. They would say that it's, you know, Luciferian and all this stuff, which would give me, I grew up in a Christian environment, I had a visceral reaction to it, and it worked very well with me. I began, and I looked into it a little bit here and there. I hadn't, you know, really read it, and I wasn't able to read it. When I would try to read it, the words would hover above there was some sort of block that was occurring. Now, of course, David Wilcock was just pushing it with me all the time. You need to read it, you need to read it. The Blue Avians are saying the exact same thing that Ra did, you know, that kind of stuff. And I would have a reaction. I'd be like, ooh, you know. But once I was actually able to read it, it did have a profound effect on me.
Okay. It sounds like it's kind of a negative thing against the secret space program if they're
well, like I said, it's compartmentalized, it's manipulated, it's controlled, okay. And everyone, I mean, everyone in this room is mind controlled. And within those programs, people are definitely, if not mind-controlled, they're put into a box.
Okay,
You know,
that sounds
you
like a
can't
negative
think
box
outside
stuff.
the box.
Sounds like a negative box stuff.
Of course.
Just to follow up on like Solar Warden, they used to protect the colonies on Mars, according to Randy Kramer. And basically they were working for the ICC. Now they're saying that they're protecting Earth. What changed, and where are they getting their financing to protect Earth?
They were not protecting the Mars bases per se. Solar Warden was a group that was developed to monitor the solar system, to monitor it, anything that came in and went out. Before Solar Warden, we basically had to petition ETs for certain things, and we had no control over who was getting abducted on the planet, what ETs were coming on our planet. We had zero control. Once we developed these space programs, we had not only advanced craft, but advanced detection technology and monitoring technology, as well as weaponry. And we were then able to police or warden our own solar system. That was the purpose of Solar Warden.
Well, who did like Randy's group, the super soldiers on Mars, who were they working for and how were they getting paid?
They don't get paid.
Okay, well, how were their expenses met?
Well, you have, depending on the level, if you go up to the military-industrial complex
I'm not talking about payroll.
I know, I'm working my way up.
I'm working
my way up. A lot of that is financed by the drug trade and different things like that. Finding ways to get money from the taxpayers. Now, on the higher levels, they're not a part. They're a completely breakaway civilization. They're not a part of our financial system. Our financial system does not support them. A lot of what they're getting material-wise is from the ICC's ability to build technologies and trade them off to other non-terrestrial races, and harvesting and mining minerals on different planetoids and in the asteroid belt. They have a completely breakaway civilization that is not tied to ours in any way other than they're pulling assets.
Okay, because I'm looking at the moral aspect, because that's slave labor up there.
Yeah.
And we have the secret, the super soldiers protecting them, and apparently, like you're saying, ICC's financing them being there. Were the super soldiers part of the Solar Warden program?
Well, now the super soldier thing has been very convoluted since the information came out. It was one of the things that it was very successful. There were a handful of very legitimate super soldiers, but they didn't jump out of airplanes and land on their feet. All this stuff is a bunch of bullcrap. They were very enhanced human beings, but they were not superhumans.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm referring to what Randy Kramer has been saying.
Okay.
Genetically engineered soldiers. Like Randy Kramer, he said there were 300 of them that were taken there to protect the colonies against the inhabitants.
Yeah, I worked alongside at times the security force that was protecting the colonies,
right.
And they were extremely specially trained, and they had chemical and genetic enhancements, but they were still very human.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of magical stuff has been built up around the super soldier thing.
Yeah, I was trying to get some information about the morality of it all.
Well,
because
if you're looking for
now they're saying that they're protecting the Earth.
They're morally bankrupt.
Okay.
There is no morality. A lot of when it comes, Mars is such an oppressive place that the energy there is that of like a prison.
Okay. But if these super soldiers who are now not protecting the colonies, if they were a part of Solar Warden, sorry to belabor the point, and now Solar Warden is saying that they're protecting the Earth, where's the transition?
They were not. They are these security forces. They're corporate. They are not a part of Solar Warden. I'm sorry if people have said otherwise. They are not. They are corporate. They are corporate forces.
Okay.
ICC forces. They Solar Warden is a Navy program, and they do have Marines. Well, they call them the Marines, but they're made up of people from all the different branches, that serve in these Marine. I can't remember the recon expeditionary force that they called them.
Special section.
And it is a special section, but that's not what they were referred to me anyway.
Okay, well, okay. All right, well, thank you. I'm taking up too
But
much
when you're
time.
looking into the morality of it, Mars is, there's a lot of slave labor going on there, and a lot of, they choose a lot of, psychopaths to help run it.
Well, my concern was that it's the same people that were there that are not here. How did the transition occur?
Yeah, well, they do cycle in people in these corporate military programs and cycle them back through the 20 and back programs.
They have no morals here. They have morals here.
No.
So we should be cautious.
They profile people for different projects and jobs. No, Solar Warden, like I said, is not who you were referring. They're ICC, interplanetary. Oh yeah. Yeah, but Solar Warden was not on the surface of Mars, protecting Mars, providing material or human support on Mars. No. Who? Solar Warden is doing their mandate of policing the solar system and monitoring what comes and goes into our solar system. Well, it's all perspective, These ETs that, some people have a positive experience, some will have a negative experience with the same ET group. And a lot of it is perspective. And
so I have a quick question for you guys. Dr. Sam, a lot of the work I've mentioned to you, my buddy Josh and I, we work with Drumvlo Melchizedek, and our focus is on what HeartMath calls heart coherence. And being able to see these fields coming out the heart. These fields are 5,000 times stronger than the mental fields. So the idea is to, hey, let's get out of the head because it's duality. Let's drop into the heart. So the question is, I think you mentioned to me there's somewhere around 50,000 volunteers that have been down to the, was that correct in that?
No, in the last 8 years, 2,900 volunteers from
Okay,
62 countries and 6 continents.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. My question to you is, you obviously must see people have huge transformations when they walk into these pyramids. Do you hear the repetitive sharing that it's a heart-based thing, or can you elaborate a little bit on that? Thank you.
This summer we had 8 shifts, 8 groups, June, July, August, September. I receive every one of them, and usually I'm the one who showed them the locations before they start volunteering. And I always ask them the same question: why did they come to Bosnia to volunteer on the Bosnian pyramids? And I'm always getting the same answer. When I first hear about Bosnian pyramids, I felt something inside. I had this inner, need, inner call to come to Bosnia. Doesn't matter whether they are from Peru or New Zealand or South Korea or Turkey or Germany or US or Canada. So obviously this topic vibrated with them when they first heard about it. They came to Bosnian pyramids after 10 days or 30 days or 7 days. They all talk about the life-changing experience. And our project started as the archaeological project 12 years ago. And today it has become the most active archaeological site in the world. But then it was not enough, so we started applying a lot of other scientific disciplines, interdisciplinary scientific projects. And then we started with the energy aspects, engineers, physicists, sound engineers. And then we noticed that this energy is affecting our energy fields, our auric fields, spiritual aspect, and then the self-healing aspects. And the volunteers actually, they go through all these different aspects. And they are telling us, when it comes to self-healing, yes, they can notice that, the big improvement in their health. When it comes to spirituality, yes, they realize, we are not only physical, but spiritual beings also. And then they share information, they talk to each other, they, share the knowledge. And so the whole new world opened for them. And it seems to me, if you're looking at our souls as the different stage souls, you have infant and baby souls and youth and mature and old souls. It seems to Bosnia mostly old souls and mature souls are coming. And we know that, not all 7.4 billion people will come to Bosnia to experience the Bosnian pyramids. But 50,000 souls every year, and then 50,000 next year. And it will be a huge impact globally. So, yes, they all tell us why they came. They all, well, of course, one of them who was in Bosnia this year, and you can see how, enlightened, how happy, how, he sees us, oh, I love you, I love you. That's really the main thing we have over there. I even named one of the pyramids, the Pyramid of Love. Sun, moon, dragon, earth, love, love. Archaeologists are attacking me for different reasons. And then for this, why did you give such romantic name? They don't realize that the words are powerful, and the most powerful is the word love. So when you name one huge structure, the Pyramid of Love, the idea is to color the valley with the love. And this is the type of messages we are sending out to the world. So yes, this is very powerful experience. And that's why we have so many people coming back. Bosnia, it's so far. You go to Europe, you go to London or Paris or Amsterdam, but people are coming to Bosnia.
I want to say thanks to both of you for being here and putting out the information that you've been doing. It's been just fantastic, I think, for the whole community. I have a question about what's going on in Antarctica. I've seen some photos of alleged pyramids down there, and I've known that you've talked about your visits to Antarctica. Are the things that you saw in Antarctica, are they related to those pictures of the pyramids we've been seeing, or is that something totally different?
I'm told that a number of pyramids have been located down there, and that they are related to the civilization that was on Antarctica before it was covered with ice. Now, it's interesting though. I reported about being brought down under the ice into these big ice caverns that were created by geothermal heat. We're starting to get little bits and pieces of that information. Recently a bunch of scientists just released video of the caverns, ice caverns, stated that they were created by geothermal heat, that it was 20 degrees Celsius under there. You can swim in the pools. You can be in a swimming suit, in a bathing suit under there. So this information is slowly trickling out to us. I would definitely like to hear what he has to say about the pyramids, if he's looked into them.
Of course, pyramids are built all over the planet. They are telling us about Egypt, Mexico, Peru, but they are in China, 250 Shanxi pyramids. Indonesia, 29,000-year-old pyramid in Western Java. Cambodia, Kocher pyramid. Island of Mauritius, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Sudan, 224 of them. Egypt, 155. Sicily, 43. Canary Islands, 104. Peru, 300. Central America, tens of thousands. Cahokia pyramids here. In states, 250 of them in the state of Illinois. Antarctica, well, I haven't been there. Those that I mentioned, I've been on all those places. Antarctica, I saw photos, like probably most of us. We can see two rather regular sites. Maybe there are 4, maybe there are 3. And then some other photos are showing 3 pyramids. Probably they wanted to relate to Egyptian or Teotihuacan pyramids. But I've learned in my life not to trust photographs. So unless we have an independent verification, I cannot say yes or no, and of course I'd like to go there. But since we know that at one point Antarctica was not icy continent, that it did have greenery and vegetation, we know that even the stone ball phenomenon was present there. Somebody was, shaping those big spherical balls. We know that the presence of civilization was there at least 100,000 plus years. So it's very possible that the pyramids were there, yes. Of course, we know about the history with the Nazis going there during 1930s and the bases. We know about 47 and 48 and, Americans fighting them, so yes. But my experience there is very, very limited, just on what I can read.
I have a question for both of you, actually. For the giant skeletons, what kind of details do you have? I saw pictures, but I cannot ask anybody around me.
Well, or if you're talking about the very large skeletons, yes. Those were a hoax. They were done as a class-type project, Photoshop kind of thing. Now, there are giant skeletons that have been found going, back into the 1800s, and they would put it in the newspapers at the time. But they were giants. Most of the people during that time were like 5.5 feet tall. So these giants were anywhere from 6.5 up almost to 8 feet tall. That or around 8 feet tall that they're located, that they were finding. Now, there are still, I've spoken to several Native American groups that they know where some of these remains are to this day. But they keep it a secret because they know that someone will come and just take them away and desecrate them and throw them in the ocean or whatever. But yeah, the very large skeleton photos you see of giants are not real.
But different civilizations, they have different sizes. That's what I know.
Yeah, I mean, there was a civilization of red-haired, six-fingered giants that controlled especially the eastern part of the United States, going down into Central America. There was a civilization that was around for quite some time. And during the last ice age, they seem to have almost completely perished. Those who survived after the ice age were in extreme survival mode, became what we would call cannibals, were living in deep caverns and caves. A lot of the times, Native Americans, if they would find out where they were, they would put a nice big bonfire at the mouth of a cave and suffocate them. There was not they were not a positive group.
Hey, Corey.
What was scientifically proven when it comes to giants? The last quarter of the 19th century, when the Smithsonian Institute was established, the first task their teams had was to travel the U.S., checking those tumulus or tumuli phenomenon, and destroy them, the earthworks, and all the archaeological material and all the remains to remove and hide. So we do have some interviews in especially some local Chicago newspapers from 1882, 83, and so on, where those teams explain that they did find skeletons 8 to 12 feet. They took them to Washington, D.C., and of course, they were never exposed to the public, because Smithsonian was not established to show, but to hide. So 1% they show, 99%, like in those Indiana Jones movies, they really placed in those huge underground warehouses. So this is what we can trace, and we can say yes, they were found there, and interestingly enough, they were found here on the American continent. But then, in a lot of civilizations, a lot of societies, they do talk about giants, but we don't have a physical proof that we can say yes, these are the bones. Sometimes our friends like Klaus Dona or Tellinger, they do find some things, but then I guess they stopped halfway trying to, prove the thing to the end. And like he said, what we can find on internet, sometimes people send those PowerPoint presentations with the big, skeletons and archaeologists there. Yes, they are photoshops, they are fake.
Going back to waking the uninitiated, it probably seems mundane to everybody in this room, but the recent release of all the JFK files, is that a good foothold? I feel like even just talking to my parents, there's things that they probably wouldn't have believed about the CIA, and you know what I mean, in terms of getting a foothold into the larger picture.
I don't expect a smoking gun in that information, but the fact that as they're releasing it, they're saying we're doing it for full disclosure. It's an interesting term they're using. But I think that what it's going to do is stimulate people's consciousness. They start thinking about the conspiracy theory stuff again. But I expect some interesting revelations to occur, but I don't expect anything groundbreaking.
What's the best email to contact you if we run across technology information that we want to share?
spherebeingalliance@gmail.com.
I just want to know if either one of you know about crystal skulls and what their purpose is.
Only thing I know is what I've heard since they've come to the public view. The 13 different skulls, the Mayan prophecy thing. I don't know anything that you wouldn't know.
Okay, they have seen some shows where some of the people that are in possession of them, because the skulls they choose who watches over them. So I don't know if you or Ken knew anything about those.
Yeah, I've been present on several of them. Some of them are in Houston, where I used to live for 25 years. Some in Canada, some different places. When it comes to their origin, yes, most of them are found in the Mayan world. And the Mayan, tribal leaders would sell them because of the money situation. So now, there are several which are, they are rather famous in the world. When you're in their present, it seems that that you can use all your 5 physical senses, to get, certain reactions. You can smell, you can hear, you can see the change of the colors. So they're made in very intelligent way. Sometimes in rather unusual way, because people who shape the crystal, they will say, oh, you would never do this like that, but it's been done that way, meaning it was very high technology how they were made. Then the way they are polished, they're saying using our instruments and tools, it would take 300 years to polish it so smooth and stuff like that. So obviously they are product of very advanced civilization. And those from the Mayans, it seems that they were getting them really long time ago. When it comes to the Mayan world, of course, they're not only 3,000 years, like they're telling us. They are direct descendants from Atlanteans. In Belize, we found places with domesticated corn 7,500 years old. So I would say there is a really direct connection, Mayans now and 12,000 years plus back. And I would say they were having this technology to make those crystal skulls, and which would, storage information, and so yeah, they were very powerful. Whether there are 13 of them or it is just a legend, or we do know that there were many more than 13. So maybe 13 major or something like that. Some of them I even found in Tibet. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, is anybody off the microphone? Okay. I had a question in regards to just kind of spiritual development. Other people have already kind of touched on it, but and I'll be brief. I was raised very strict Catholic, and I don't want to bash anybody that is. I still find a lot of worth in it, and I still have belief in it. But there's so much that I see now as fear control and just programming and mind control. And, I kind of years ago was reading a lot of Jim Marrs, and you face the gauntlet, you hear a lot of crazy stuff. And then you kind of just okay, it's out there, it is what it is, and you get over it. But for the people that are still in that conditioned mindset, how, and some of my siblings even, very religious still, how do you kind of address that with them in a way, in maybe your guys' experience, that isn't bashing any kind of belief system, but just saying you have to deprogram certain things that are within just your mindset, your comfort zone, and look beyond it? It's a tough question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, it's when you can get people to agree that religions are, maybe they were set up in a positive way, but then, you know, they were then used quickly by the cabal to control people and all this stuff. And people will nod and they'll be like, yeah, that's true about your religion, but not mine. You know, I mean, people are so entrenched in that. I don't know if those types of conversations are going to be received at all. Even, pretty much what my family is, you know, I have a number of people that are convinced the Earth is 7,000 years old. I mean, nothing I say is going to convince them otherwise, you know? So I think it's pretty much we need to focus on ourselves. You know, a lot of my family has been trying to figure out, wow, you know, he's not going to church every Sunday, but he's going through this weird metamorphosis, and, you know, he's starting to become more spiritual, and his family life is better, and all these things are improving, but he's not doing it the way we trained him to, you know? I think we have to be examples more than trying to speak to people, because, you know, especially people that are completely indoctrinated, they're just going to shut you down, you know, and shame you.
Plus, if they say you got to go to a building and you say, well, the Bible says my body is a building and I am inside.
Our society is based on fear. In academia, if you're a student, you fear your professor. Assistant professor, again, fear the professor. They don't want to say something wrong. Professors, of course, fear deans or rectors. In corporate world, if you're a young guy, you know, you fear what you're going to do, what you're going to say, because your supervisor is looking. Your supervisor is fear, you know, of the manager or VP and so on. In media world, the journalist, they need to make sure what they're going to write, the news, so editor, you know, will not criticize them or fire them. Fear. The basic fear is fear of losing the life, the physical death. And based on that fear, all other fears are coming. Fears of losing the job, losing the money, losing the mortgage, losing the house, losing the car, losing the loved ones. Fear, fear, fear. We need to change that. If we go back to the ancient civilizations, we would realize that they were more spiritually advanced. What does that mean? They knew that we have, of course, our physical body for one use only. But also we have our soul, which is almost, you know, eternal. And we have our spirit. Once you realize that your soul will live through so many lives, there is no need to fear. Why should you fear? You won't die. Why should you fear of losing your job? Why should you fear of losing your home? So once you live the life without the fear, then this is not what elites don't want. Because without that, they cannot control us. They cannot manipulate us. When it comes to spirituality, back in Europe, they were teaching us spirituality equals religious. Wrong. Spirituality is development of our spiritual senses, so we can sense the world beyond the physical reality. With our physical senses, we sense physical reality. We see, we hear, we touch. With our spiritual senses, we can then feel much, much more. 5 physical and 30 spiritual senses. First of all, every physical has its counterpart on spiritual aspect. So these are first 5 spiritual senses. But then, ability to directly communicate, telepathy, spiritual sense. Ability to see the aura field, spiritual sense. The colors in aura, which of course tells a lot about us, spiritual sense. The power to move objects with the power of our mind, telekinesis, spiritual sense. The power to move through space and time and different densities, teleportation, a spiritual sense. At one point in the time, over 12,000 years ago, before the end of the last ice age, when our planet was much stronger, when the natural energy places were much stronger than today, then the pyramids were much stronger, producing very strong energy fields. And you could move through them. Teleportation. So once you develop your spiritual senses, then you can live in balance, physical and spiritual aspect. And then you become free. And this is what they don't want us to be. They don't want us to be free. We free ourselves, then everybody is becoming free, and then you have society based on free women and free men. The project we have in Bosnia, it's of course archaeological, it's scientific, but much, much more. You go to those tunnels, people start feeling stuff with their hands. They start feeling energies. We start developing our spiritual abilities. Two major things that we have over there. We are proving that the pyramid energy is actually clean, unlimited, and free, based on the shape, geometry of the pyramid, based on elements of sacred geometry, based on using existing natural sources, free energy. That energy beam going through the top of the Sun pyramid, 28 kilohertz, the same frequency used by Nikola Tesla 100 years ago in Wardenclyffe Tower to transport the energy between two planets. And as he said, unlimited quantities of energy, thousands of horsepowers, regardless of their distance, 28 kilohertz. The Bosnian pyramid builders knew about this particular frequency 30,000 years ago. And Tesla got it through his experiments, successful, unsuccessful. So, free energy, the first pillar of the free society. And free flow of knowledge, the second pillar of the free society.
In the beginning, the way Cosmic Disclosure was structured, it was really revealing a lot of information about the secret space program and what the technology looked like and kind of what a day in the life like was there. And it seemed to have evolved to more validating the existence of the programs, kind of covering the material about what William Tompkins and other people there, and most recently with the Indian tribes. But do you know if the show will take a direction going back to revealing the technology that was used and ways that it'll be applied to society by and large?
I hope so. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing right now. When we reached pretty much the end of my testimony of what I had experienced, and then after that, the show transitioned into bringing in people to validate that information. Right now, Cosmic Disclosure is about to take a short production break because we're going to reboot the set and change it up, and it's going to come back even better. Now, content-wise, we're discussing a lot of not only validating the information the way we have in the past through different authors, experiencers, and whatnot, but we're also going to start also covering like what has come out in the news that corroborates with my earlier testimony. And there are a number of new whistleblowers that we're vetting to talk to. There's some that are coming forward that have some promise, but I'm being extremely careful when it comes to insiders because the last attack that was used on to kind of bring down my information was not successful because they were basing it off of a psychological profile 3 years ago before I went through this metamorphosis. So I have to be careful of them bringing in a person that has a really good story and maybe some documentation or that, and me saying, yeah, I think they're real, and then them blowing up in public. So, and this disclosure stuff is way bigger than me and my testimony. what we're hoping to do is get in more whistleblowers, also talk to people who have been, who've worked in the military-industrial complex to discuss these technologies, how they're being developed, how far they've been developed in the background. But we have pretty much reached the end of my testimony of the experiences I had. The show was developed around my experiences, of course.
Right.
But the show is taking another evolution. And not only that, but when I go back, in like the second week of November, we're shooting my new show. It's going to be called Above Cosmic. And if you notice in the first shows, not only was I in a different state than I am now,
Yeah.
but David was interviewing me, and he was taking the conversation in whatever direction he thought was pertinent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do is I'm going to cover a lot of that testimony again, but I'm going to give all of these details that were skipped over.
Right, right. That's kind of really where I was going, because a lot of the material that you were communicating on first, especially talking about the replicators and a lot of the other technology that was in these programs, I would have wanted to hear a lot more about that and see if there was people who had approached you or if people are attempting to replicate this technology now with the current advancements. And one more question. Have you heard anything more from Sigmund?
Not a word from Sigmund. I'm not real interested in actually seeing him again, to be honest. I mean, the guy chemically interrogated me and caused me to give up 3 people that I didn't want to give up. So, I, of course, the loving side of me hopes he's okay, but the, I guess, jaded side of me is good riddance.
Mine's a simple question for the doctor. I just got a 4-foot pyramid that I'm going to put inside the house. I got a table, no nails, and I'm getting ready to level the table and align the pyramid. And what I'm going to make is pyramid water for health. But my question, it's, I think, 72 or 74 degrees, not in the 40s like the big ones. What happens to that energy that's going to go through my roof? I did not think of it till I watched your presentation, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen to the roof?
You're going to have a leak. So you were here yesterday?
Yes.
Now you could see that there are many elements, not just the shape of the pyramid. Of course, the shape is number 1, the most important. The second one, the material. Number 3, orientation. As long as you orient it to the cardinal points, east, west, north, south, it's going to be working.
Well,
Why am I saying that?
I screwed up there. I was so anxious to try it that I took a compass. Now, you're supposed to get it within 1/10 of a degree. I was close.
That's okay, as long as it is close.
Yeah, but I drank the water, and boy, that was really bad. So my inside shook and all kinds of stuff. So I'm really going to work on getting the pyramid aligned perfectly, because it somehow screwed up the water.
Why is alignment important? Our planet is a huge energy ball. There are energy flows on the planet. The strongest is north-south. The second strongest, east-west. You make 4-sided pyramid perfectly aligned to the cardinal points. You initiate energy movement within the pyramid. You have 3 energy flows. One is energy beam going through the top. The second one, energy flow within the pyramid, hitting 1/3 of the height, going to 2/3, coming back to 1/3, and completing the circle. If you are exposed to this energy, yes, it is going to improve the molecular structure. Yours, if you are inside, and kings and queens chamber in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, are exactly on the way of this energy flow, but it also improves molecular structure of everything. Plants, animals, water, objects, anything. So yes, this is what you need to do. That's why you're placing the water inside. The water starts vibrating higher. When we hate, we vibrate low. When we are violent, when we are jealous, we vibrate low. When we are open-minded, we love everyone, we vibrate high. When we drink the water, if it is our kitchen water, city water, with the chlorine and fluorides and traces of heavy metals, it vibrates very low. We drink it, pulls us down. If it is, clean water, if it is, energized water, vibrates high, of course, then, our vibration go up. We measure the Bosnian pyramid water. First of all, it is clean, a lot of negative ions, exposed to the best pyramid energies, original Schumann resonance, 7.83 Hertz, 28 kilohertz electromagnetism, the levitation ultrasound frequency. Water remembers, it vibrates very high. We drink it, we know we solve our problems. But bear in mind that Bosnian pyramids, they have all the elements. They have underground waters, they have negative ionization, they have those pyramid energies which you will not achieve just making a simple wooden pyramid. You will have 2 or 3 elements. If you had 10 or 15, of course, the effects would be much stronger. But even that pyramid, just oriented, it's going to give the effect, yes. Don't worry about that one. Actually, you make a little pyramid. There will be like a movement of the energy spinning a little bit and then going through the top. There will be. But more elements you have, the pyramid is stronger and produces at least 3 flows. Top, inside, and off the pyramid in concentric circles, affecting, if it is outside, crops, agriculture, and the whole societies. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Corey. He's done a great job. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sue. And you have a good evening.
Everything's all coming to a head at once. I was going to vlog today, and I was going to finish or work on a lot of my update today, but it doesn't look like, with the roofing going on next door, I just got a mattress delivery, doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do any of that. So I'm going to get stuff out as fast as I can. Molly, what's going on? Huh? What's going on, Molly? Huh? Oh, gotta go do your business? Alright. That's the room I do my vlog in, and I don't guess I'll be able to do it today. Hope they're done quickly. Hello, and welcome to Goode Vlog. I'm Corey Goode. Today is October the 3rd, and I am dealing with every kind of distraction you could think of in the world. My mattress was delivered today, and we had about 9 people climb up on the roof next door and started banging away, roofing the house. And we've had several houses right around just the last few weeks that have had that, so it's been very distracting. And I've also had to deal with, since we got back from Sedona, Stacy tried to switch back over to some of her old foods and ended up kicking off her ulcerative colitis. So she's been pretty much laying in bed all the time. I've had to do pretty much everything, so no time to work on my update or on these vlogs. We're just about caught up real time. We've got a few more that'll be coming out that will include stuff from Mount Shasta and an interview I did with Bridget and Kirk Nielsen while I was in Sedona. But by the end of the week, I hope to be caught up to real time, to where the video that you see has occurred within the week. As far as Stacy's health goes, she is doing a lot better, other than the ulcerative colitis, of course, but weirdly enough, something that I've recommended to people because it helped us was causing her seizures and her heart palpitations. Very scary. It was Prevagen, the medication you see advertised to help you with your memory. Well, it does help, but the side effects can be pretty scary. I didn't have any side effects, but then again, I'm not on any pharmaceuticals whatsoever, so I may have more of a tolerance. But she's at the doctor today. She's seeing the doctor that helps her with her ulcerative colitis, and hopefully that will be under control, and we can move forward in the next week and have a normal home life and normal home activity, and I can get back to work because I'm really feeling the need to get a lot of this work done. I've got so much work that is built up, and hopefully I can get that worked out and taken care of soon. A big announcement and an apology. David and I will not, I repeat, not be at AlienCon this month. David, I guess, failed to answer the organizers' emails confirming that we were going, and he told me that it was confirmed, so I told everyone else. So sadly, no, we're not going to be there, and I really apologize to people who bought tickets and who are going to see us. We're told by one of the, I guess, organizers or people related to the organizers that this was so successful that they're going to have us at future AlienCon events. So I will definitely keep you informed about that. Our friends at Collective Evolution are creating a news show that is going to be balanced, unbiased, but most of all, is going to cover a lot of the truth that we look for, and it's going to be free. So if you could, click on the link below or visit the link below and donate to their crowdfunding site. I think that they'll have a really good show, and I hope to work with them in the future. Please go to fulldisclosurenow.com, and they're going to start having a special on discernment. It's, as you know, you saw from my latest update about all of the recent secret space program insiders that are popping up. I've been told that a lot of this is to be expected. It's natural for people to, bring in the information like that. But there is a certain component of this, this phenomenon, I guess we'll call it, that is mirroring what happened with the super soldier community. There were some credible super soldiers that came out and that have come out since then, but they had so many people go in that were being manipulated to water down the information that now a lot of researchers really don't pay attention to the super soldier topic at all. And I think the same thing is going to happen with secret space program insiders. You're going to start having, secret space program astronaut conventions and that kind of thing, and people, telling all their stories and stuff, or, that. I guess they really don't see any harm in what they're doing because they figure other people are living this mythic life, so why not them? It's kind of the Dungeons and Dragons scenario. Some people get so into that. But for some of us, this is absolutely real. And I would hate to see anything done that would damage disclosure or would begin to water down the information that some of the recent credible whistleblowers have given. So I guess we will see how things play out. I plan on addressing this more in my update. So, as I said, thank you for joining me here today on the vlog. I would really like to see you back here again next time, and until then, follow your bliss. Do whatever it takes to be happy. Life is short. There's no time for all this crap. Just find a way to be happy and go with it. And it may not be conventional. It may not be even that big of a deal. It could be the small things in life, but we've got to find something that we find joy in. The biggest thing I hear in all of the emails I receive is that there's no hope. Everyone has lost hope. So I hope that, you know, as a community, we can find a way to start coming together more and supporting each other without, and disagreeing with each other without crucifying each other, which is pretty hard for people in this community. So thank you for joining me on October the 3rd for my vlog. So I guess without further ado, later. That was cheesy.